There was a little bit of confusion last week, and I think a part of that is my fault. People filled out the 5 things they learned from watching this on the wrong assignment. Last week there was an introduction video that was about 30 minutes long, and then there was a recording of this video that was about an hour and a half. And a few people from this live thing went and filled out the attendance for the little short video because it was already online. And so those people, I wrote a quick note, and I think everybody uh, was able to fix it pretty quick. So last week there were actually
I think
two
I was one of
attendance
them.
videos. What's that?
I think I was one of them that probably did that, and then I redid it.
Okay, all right. Because when I first saw it happening, I was completely baffled, and then I was able to talk to a couple people and understood what was going on. But so I wrote an email that hopefully clarified it for everybody. And then somebody else mentioned to me when, as a teacher, when you upload like a copy of a previous course and you reset the dates, the I am I trust that the system knows how to do it correctly, and so I just ignore it. But then I was told that the dates were really wonky. Some of the things that were supposed to be due Sunday this week were actually due like Monday or Tuesday, and several people got really stressed. So I apologize for that. I'm going through each of the modules, starting like 15 minutes ago. I started and just resetting the due dates. So that the reading things, I'm going to put up that they are all should be read on Monday. You know, we meet on Tuesday, so hopefully you read them before you watch the, excuse me, before you attend our class discussion. But then all the due dates, the quizzes should be due on Fridays, and the all the projects and the weekly reflections should be due on Sundays. So if you see that that is off, please email me so I can go back and fix it. I'm going to go through and try to make sure that that's right for everybody. But if it's screwed up or if it's confusing, please go ahead and fix it. I notice we have about half as many people. Well, actually, no, about a third of the people that we had last week, which is sad for me. But we are going to be meeting on Tuesday, and the feedback I've been getting is since I'm supposed to be giving context and stuff and talking about the assignments, meeting on Tuesday is actually going to give everybody several more days to do what they need to so they can turn their stuff in on Sunday. So that's why we're meeting on Tuesday. So I do hope that more people are able to join us live because however, I do very much appreciate Susan, Jeremy, and Nicole, you guys being here tonight. All right. I'm going to, last week's assignment was talking about the divided mind. And then, and I think it was, we were doing the contour drawings. Is that right? Okay. What was your guys'
Yes,
experience doing the contour drawings of your hands? Because it is
mine was
not
pretty
supposed to
bad.
look,
I'm sure you saw.
actually, every one that I saw was really good. It's exactly like it was supposed to be. And I like this kind of exercise because it's not designed to look like your hand. You're forced to draw just the little creases and the elements of your hand that you're visualizing, but you're not allowed to see any sort of reference points so you can get the sizes right. And it can look really, really interesting. Sometimes it looks really awful, but for the assignment for what it is, it all of them looked really good. The only way that somebody can screw up on something like this is if you try to shade. Why would that be a bad thing to do for this assignment?
Because it was just the lines.
Exactly, exactly. And remember, you're not being an artist in this class, you're following directions. And so if you were trying to shade, that's the only time it would be bad. Now I wanted to, so what I saw was really good. And the 30 little drawings that everybody did, those were all really good too. And I know that some people are going to say, oh, I did a terrible job. Did a terrible job. I don't like that. I don't like hearing that from anybody because as long as you looked at it and drew what you are trying to see, then that's fine. You know, you did 30 drawings of things that you saw around your apartment, your home, or wherever you were at the time. As long as you got 30, that's what you were supposed to do. As long as you did small drawings instead of big ones, that's what you were supposed to do. And as long as they were contour drawings, that's what you were supposed to do. So if you're beating yourself up because the cockroach that you saw in the sink that you tried drawing really fast ran away before you were finished and it doesn't look like a good cockroach, I don't really care. I don't want to hear your whining because you did what you were supposed to be doing. All right. Does everybody get that? We're not looking for finished pieces because it is very rare when you come to an Art 1010 class that you're going to have the 10,000 hours it takes to get to a point where you can duplicate what everybody else is expecting to see. That's not what we're looking for.
Hey, my upside down horse looked pretty damn good, I'd say though.
Yeah, and there were a couple that didn't turn out right, and um, I'm not going to say they didn't turn out right, but they weren't following. It looked to me like they weren't following the directions. And I will tell you one thing that is consistent, and we'll talk about the upside down horse and how to succeed in that. But the one thing that is consistent is when somebody follows the directions and draws the thing upside down, tries to put out the idea of a horse out of their head, the drawing always looks better. And I could tell there were a couple people that turned in things. I didn't give them full points because I wanted them to watch the video for this and then go back and see if they could, do it again or get any better. Um, it looked to me like they got sidetracked and started trying to draw the horse instead of staying with the upside down drawing. And I'll explain that in just a little bit. So, my suspicion, Jeremy, is that the reason that your horse looks so good is that you were trying to push the idea of it being a finished horse out of your head when you were drawing it. Is that true?
I was just trying to copy the picture
That's
I was
exactly,
looking at. Yes.
yes, yes, excellent. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So and that consistently, when it turns out well, when you turn it right back, right side up again, it looks like a horse. It's because people are following the directions. Now I'm going to do a screen share thing here really quick. If I could, I'm not going to whine too loud. Teachers aren't supposed to be complaining. But I will tell you, sometimes when the university makes a decision about new programs and new ways of doing things, it they don't always communicate with the slower running faculty, as like myself, how to get everything working exactly the way that they're thinking you should intuitively do it. One of the problems is if you were born before the year 2000, most of the so-called intuitive um, layout website layouts are designed by people that are like 17 to 19 years old, and it's intuitive to them because they grew up on this stuff. For the rest of the normal humanity, it's not so intuitive. Okay, so this is module 2, and we're talking about this module talks about why art is important. And I have a video that I really want people to see, but I cannot share it because YouTube will ding me, um, ding the recording. So I'm going to show you what the opening frame looks like, and I will put that on the attendance. And I want everybody, write 5 things from here that we're talking about, and then just put in the statement, yes, I watched that video. And there's several different reasons that this person talks about why art is important. And the title of the video is called "What is Art For?" Sorry about that. And as soon as I get to it, I will show you what this opening screen looks like. Okay, here we go. So this is the video that I want everybody to watch. It is from the Guardian puts it out. And the question it asks is, what is art for? I really, really like this video. It's almost 6 minutes long, but it is excellent. It is absolutely awesome. When we look at art, one of the things that I see consistently is most people are very intimidated by art. Is that something that you guys have encountered?
For me, I wouldn't
Well,
say
that
intimidating. I find it fascinating art just because there's so many different versatile techniques to it and different forms of artwork.
all right. So for you, it's more of like a journey, an adventure when you encounter it. Uh, most people, and I'm going to say most people because it's actually around 80 to 83% of people that are forced to go into galleries. They really don't want to be there. They're there because their date wants them to be there, or they're trying to force themselves to encounter culture. But the great majority of people find art very uncomfortable to look at. And one of the reasons is, and this actually goes back to the mid 1800s, is because art from becoming a part of the lived environment was separated out and became a commodity that could be sold. It's packaged and sold. And that developed at the end of the Industrial Revolution, so the early 1800s. There were an awful lot of people, more than at any other previous point in European history, that and North American history, that had disposable income. So this is where we get the explosion of what we now call the middle class. Art changed course. It went from highfalutin things that everybody would really felt empowered in seeing to, because of this growing group of people that had disposable income, subjects of art became everyday occurrences, everyday themes for people that were buying it, because artists found that they didn't have to work for families, they didn't have to work for the government. They could work on their own and sell their paintings to people who had this disposable income. So the topics and subject matter of art changed. After a generation or so of that, people started realizing, artists started realizing, you know what? If I share my own vision of what I see, there's going to be people out there that are going to respond to it and they're going to be excited about it. And that's when we start seeing a lot of different art styles, in addition to realistic and naturalistic type forms start developing. This is where we see things like Impressionism start developing, where for some people it just did not seem like the real world because they were used to seeing naturalistic renderings. And it wasn't intended to look like the real world. It was intended to show the artist's impression of their experience in the world. So, and which is typically should be hopefully unique. You know, each of us has a different worldview. What is interesting to me is the moment that artists started creating work for people with middle incomes that could afford it, middlemen started showing up. And that's where we start getting something called the gallery system. That was very popular in France, and that really set the tone for every gallery since. And what that was is you would have gallery owners that would decide on what kinds of paintings they wanted to sell. They would decide on how seriously uh, to take the marketing, so they would know how much to charge. And this not only kind of directed what artists had to produce so that they could sell it and make a living, but gallery owners very quickly found that they could also have a lot of sway in what became popular. And that went on for quite a while. And we'll talk later about things like Cubism and Dada that developed specifically to counter that just overwhelming and brutal gallery system. For 90% of people, this is great. You want people to be able to tell you, oh, this is nice, this is good, that you want this in your home. And artists really appreciate, many artists really appreciate having a direction that they could be pointed at, saying, hey, we want you to focus on sunsets, but use a lot of blue and green and purple. Okay, and artists like doing that because artists like experimenting and exploring, but there are some that don't like that at all. But as part of that system, when people started asking, well, why is this art good? Why is this popular? Since the truth was that the gallerists just wanted to sell that year, they couldn't really say that. So they started making up uh, different rationales for why things should be popular. And this is where you start getting what became art criticism. And it's essentially based in a marketing ploy where the people selling stuff, and of course, this is all entirely my opinion. Um, Not entirely, but I base it a lot on artists that I respect and admire, like the Cubists and the Dadaists, who were directly countering this kind of environment. And this environment is documented. But art criticism grew to use long-winded words to explain to people why they should or shouldn't like something. And it was specifically geared towards swaying public opinion so that they could be pointed at something that could be popular to sell. And so it's essentially based on marketing. And on one level, I think that there's a little bit where that's needed so that people can uh, find something that they enjoy and maybe make up justifications so that they can rationalize why they enjoy it, even though the only rationalization you really need is that you like it. You don't need it to have to say anything else. But on the other hand, what that came to be, since it was important for many of these people who were selling to collectors just to have the collectors trust them, most people felt really separated from the art because they didn't have access to that kind of vocabulary that the art critics were using. They didn't feel like they were worthy somehow of deciding for themselves because other people were trying to tell them, no, you need to trust us. And that is something that's still going on today. But what it comes down to is many people feel uncomfortable when they look at art. Many people, most of you in the class said, no, I'm not an artist, when all of you are. You may not be an artist in ways that you have been taught to believe that, this is the only way to create art. But anytime you make something where you are making it in concert with something beyond your everyday ego-driven self, then it's art, whether that's teaching kindergartners or growing potatoes. It really does not matter. And I take that is a definition of art that there's evidence of it from the dawn of time, but it was articulated by Renaissance era monks who would go around in the guild system and look at what different people were making. So I'm not just making that definition of art up. And it was articulated pretty well by oh Albrecht Dürer, a German etcher and sketching artist that was just phenomenal. Anyway, so that's why people feel uncomfortable about art. And if you're one of those people, hopefully the vocabulary of this class will uh, help you demonstrate your confidence. This last semester, somebody in my class said that she hated talking about art and dealing with it because she gave her opinion once, And the person in the gallery told her that she was not only wrong, but she was really, really wrong. And because she didn't have access to a vocabulary that she could really be confident in expressing herself, she just felt heartbroken because her opinion didn't matter. And I think that's terrible. I think that's really terrible. So anyway, the all of that is leading up to, I'm going to share my screen again. All of that is leading up to the idea that this video is going to be really important. I want everybody to watch it. It's 5 minutes, 53 seconds long. And this person gives 4 or 5, maybe 6 different reasons as to why art is important. And I think one of the reasons that is really good is art reminds us that there are happy things. Art reminds us, regardless of how miserable we may feel, that there are beautiful things. Art also reminds us that it's okay, if we're feeling crappy, it's okay to feel crappy. And that's there are because not only is it okay to feel crappy, but other people feel crappy, and it's fine. That's part of being human. And sometimes art is really important because even though we see like the red carpet and all this kind of stuff, there are artists that will remind us that things like weeds are beautiful. One of the things that this the animator for this points out is that Van Gogh's oranges remind us that sometimes fruit, just by itself as fruit, is beautiful. And he does this kind of thing where these are each famous artists that did their own things, but it's okay. Art reminds us to have hope. Art, it reminds us that it's okay to be sad and feel crappy sometimes. Art helps us to stay balanced in a world where sometimes there's a lot of negative things. We can look at the hopeful things or the happy things. Uh, I think it's Monet's painting of the water lilies, the lilies on a pond, is still the best-selling postcard in the world. That one painting, because for many people it is bright and it is happy. And then Van Gogh, he's the one that painted the oranges. He reminds us that sometimes the normal, silly little boring things can be beautiful too. Like I don't know if you guys have seen Audubon, any of Audubon's paintings. Have you guys seen those at all? I think he was the one who's famous for painting birds, and he would just paint. I'll see if I can find an image. Let's see. The Audubon Society is really associated with things like uh, bird habitats and wildlife sanctuaries. And but one of the reasons why, is because Audubon was an aristocrat who learned how to paint, and when he painted his birds, he would do them as kind of biological reference points, so people could identify these birds in the wild. But he also made absolutely beautiful paintings. These are um, Audubon birds, and so he would do these really, really delicate, beautiful little renderings. It's just a bird. These are weeds, for crying. That's all it is. But he took the time to make it beautiful so that people could really enjoy them. And he's inspired millions of people to help keep these habitats as close to what they are as possible so that the birds can continue enjoying their life in them. I'm particularly intrigued with what Jeremy was saying. Jeremy, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Why does art feel more like an adventure to you? What do you like about it when you encounter it?
I think it's just because there's such a vast majority of different styles of art and what people consider art. And so it's really when I think of looking at specific pieces, you really have to get the backstory because there's always a story with it. They're all just very unique to themselves.
All right, that's excellent. I really like that. Um, and I think that that is a really, really wonderful point. And I hope that people take that to heart as you're looking at this art. I think that the people that are get frustrated with it is like we just talked about, feel that people that feel intimidated by it. And the artists that create the art do not want you to feel intimidated. That's not why they're making it. They're making it so, like Jeremy said, you can just kind of enjoy the adventure. That's why artists create.
Yeah, I just wish I had a lot more money because the art that I like is pretty damn expensive.
Yeah, well, and it's I kind of like that too. Sometimes it's nice to have encounter expensive art because it shows that other people feel that it's valuable. And but sometimes too, it's kind of fun. Like when I was when I go on trips to places, I like to go to little hole in the wall galleries or see people that are selling stuff on the street. Like I bought little uh, home baked clay jewelry from people in India or uh, little handmade prints in Germany, you know, different or miniature paintings in Iran. And I love that because you when you find them from people that are selling them just like on a street corner or something like that, a lot of times you can get them really inexpensive and small enough that you can take them home easily. But it is just it's fun to see that because um, art is one of those things that communicates beyond the fences of words. Uh, Heidegger, who's one of my favorite philosophers, said that every time we choose to use a word, we choose not to use 1,000 others. And so, even though the precision of language is what allows us to communicate at a high level and allows us to think really thoroughly, it still does kind of imprison us a little bit. And art is one of those things where you're not limited to the cage that words can build. And I love these kind of things. There's just a couple reasons for this that this lesson gives that are different from that video I showed you. And I really appreciate these quite a bit as well. I'm sorry, I lost that one video I wanted to share with people, so I will find that again and um, oh, here we go. Okay. I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play that video again, but or I won't play it at all. But I am like I said, I will link it to the um, attendance recording so that everybody can have access to it. No, I grew up with three Dene brothers and a Shoshone sister. My sister was a traditional Shoshone beater, and she would make she did really amazing stuff. And so when I saw Mary Holiday Black is a potter and she does these woven baskets, but she does stuff that is really, yeah, we can look at it and say, oh yeah, big deal. But it is a big deal. She comes from millennia long tradition of pottery, you know, this woven style of pottery. And she is an artist. I don't know if you guys have gone to Navajo Bridge or places like that in the state. Uh, I love seeing places like that because one of the reasons why I enjoy them is because usually you can find a half a dozen people that sell jewelry and pottery and different things like that there. And when I start talking to them, it's fun because most of the time it's their grandma that makes it or they make it themselves. And it's fun to hear the story about it. What that does too is it allows whoever the artist is to share with you something that has been really important for their family for sometimes over 1,000 years. You know, and it's a really good way of learning about another culture without having to read an essay. Oh, it looks like I'm going to have to. Uh, sometimes the images disappear, so I'm going to have to update that image. If you guys, I really would appreciate it. If you guys see some of these broken links like this, please let me know so I can fix it. And this is the image that is supposed to be shown. It's The Night Cafe. It's by Van Gogh. One of the things that is really nice about this is this shows what cafe life was like in this area of France at the time that he painted it. And it's kind of fun. These are the kinds of references that people will go to when they make period movies, for example, uh, because they are documentations of history. And there are some that are really brutal that have to be seen. Um, I'm thinking of a number where of paintings like Guernica by Pablo Picasso was one that the Spanish government would not allow in the country of Spain for quite a while because they felt that it was uh, too critical of the Spanish government. And Guernica is a painting really harsh. It's painful to look at. It is beautiful, but it's one of those beautiful things that doesn't make you smile. It's harsh to look at because Picasso was sharing his emotions when he found out about um, Adolf Hitler gave the dictator of Spain a 2 mile gun, 2 mile piece of artery that could shoot a shell 2 miles. And the dictator of Spain picked a random city, random town in the country of Spain, his own country, and bombed it to the point that there was not even a chicken alive. And the town that he picked randomly was Guernica, just because he wanted to play with the toy that Adolf Hitler gave him, which is despicable and utterly horrible. But art documented that. And so, and I'll show you an image of Guernica. You probably we'll look at it later when we are talking about um, Cubism. But this is one of the reasons why, another reason why art is important. I'm just going to show, and you can see people distorted in their suffering, people dying. This and this is a direct aftermath of that bombing of the city by their own government, simply because they wanted to test out the toy that Adolf Hitler gave them. I just, like I said, utterly despicable. But rather than just writing a cold article about it, he painted a very uh, intensely emotional piece. Now, art can explore really complex ideas. And you look at this and you say, well, why is that art? It's just crumpled paper. Well, yes, it is. But remember, we talked a little bit about the gallery system. Our definitions of art come to us from gallery system definitions that were developed in the mid 1800s. So, it's almost 200 years tradition of how we see art. And it's how we see art comes to us because somebody told us how to see it. And what if somebody tries to start exploring things like, well, what if it's art because I'm putting it up on a wall in a museum? What if it's art because I'm placing it intentionally? Notice that they crumpled one corner and they've crumpled it pretty closely similar, but it's not identical. Now, I don't know what the name of this piece is, but this is something that is called conceptual art. It's a tradition that started specifically in the late 50s, early 60s, but it was designed to get people to start questioning the idea of what types of things do we have permission to call art? And then it also starts presenting a space where we start thinking, well, if this is art and it's important to somebody, why are they displaying it and what can I get out of it? And we start thinking, well, what could they possibly be saying? And it's like we're holding in our imagination a conversation with the person who put this up. And, big question is, why is that art? And I'm sure that you guys have all seen, I'm going to show you something else that I'm sure um, you guys have all seen. In 1917, an artist living in France was walking by an apartment block that was being remodeled. And in this, he was really frustrated because, again, the gallery system at the time was trying to tell him what art was valid and what art wasn't. And he wanted to just be able to express himself. And so as he was walking by this remodeled apartment, he went in and asked one of the workers if he could just take one of the urinals they were throwing away, and they said, sure. So I'm really hoping that he washed it. But you see that he signed it L Mutt or R Mutt, just a name that he made up. And he set it on its back and titled it The Fountain. Put it on a pedestal, just like all the other sculptures in the art show. And the gallerists trusted him to set up the show because he wants to sell his own art. And when people saw this, there were actually some people that fainted. There were other people that wanted to destroy it with a crowbar. It caused a big stir, but it was specifically designed to get people to ask, what, why are we giving somebody else permission to well, I mean, so why are we giving somebody else permission to tell us what art is? And it was specifically designed to cause a stir. So that's Marcel Duchamp. And I really like this. Art elicits wonder. I don't have any of you guys been to the AI experience? There's one in Las Vegas and there's another one in Denver, I believe, where it's supposed to be like an alien super mall that you walk through and experience all these weird sounds and stuff like that, and you can pick up things to take home. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Well, this is by Sarah J. And it's kind of an art piece where instead of making a conventional painting with paint, she was trying to do something to create an environment demonstrating or at least reflecting some sort of idea that instead of painting with paint, what if we were painting with the kind of images we see on social media that are chaotically disorganized coming into a room? Each of these, the images are not static. Some of them stay still, but most of them are moving around. But it's almost like it becomes a metaphor for the doom scrolling that we do. And then there's other people that do stuff like there's a guy named James Turrell who grew up a Quaker, and he went the opposite way. He's trying to pull people away from doom scrolling and things like that. He creates environments where you walk in and the light is so evenly distributed that you feel like you're floating, even though you're walking on the floor. Or there's another one called the Crater, where you walk in and the whole room is designed for you to sit comfortably and just look up at the sky because there's a big hole in the roof. So it becomes a frame for the beauty of the sky, and that's it, which I think is really fascinating. James Turrell is one of my favorite artists as well. And then there are things like this where this is also by the same artist, where she is creating an environment with things that are ubiquitous, the plastic and peeling wallpaper and stuff like that. But she's making it in such a way that it looks like one of these fantastic fantasy realms that you can only visit in a VR gaming environment. And if you zoom in, you can tell, you can identify different things. I just think stuff like that is absolutely fascinating. And we talked about this is a person, name is Elliot Eisner. And one of the things that he wanted to point out is that art is not just its own thing. It's um, something that is important for any field. Now, if we talk about the definition of art being something that we create as we're working in concert with our higher self or our subconscious or anything like that, um, I think this is a perfect example of that kind of thinking. Have you guys ever heard the term thought experiment? Okay, some of you have. Uh, Einstein, one of the things that he would do constantly is actually he and his wife both did it, but they would think about a problem and they would think about potential ramifications of the problem or potential solutions to the problem. and just imagine what the world would be like if that ramification was extended into the real world or if that solution were presented. And this is how he came up with the ways that he was able to communicate his ideas about higher order physics and relativity, thinking of these thought experiments. And when we think about that, now we have things like these idea, uh, oh, what were the, I'm sorry, the word escapes me, where it's a diagram where you have a central idea and then you have all these lines coming out with the sub ideas, and then each of the mind mapping, that's what it's called. But mind mapping is a visual representation of those thought experiments. And one thing that's really fascinating to me is all of us, when we do something, we will want to tweak it a little bit here and there. We'll want to somehow improve on it. When we move into a new house, we want to make sure that it's clean. We'll bring in plants, for example. When we buy a new car, we want to make sure that it's cleaned up, or we'll adjust the seat so it's optimal. We'll sometimes we'll put stickers on the bumper, different things like that to kind of make it our own, make it so that it fits our own personal environment. All those are examples of this expression that art can go into pretty much any environment. One thing that's fascinating to me, about 30 years ago, Pew Charitable Trust funded a series of studies where they would go around to communities around the world of all different technological levels, where you go from, the super science fiction mecca of Tokyo all the way down to a group of people that don't like outsiders and make their own clothes out of bark and skins from animals, and everything in between. And one of the things, and they would show them a series of pictures of faces of people in their community and say, well, which face is the most beautiful? And or figures or uh, images, like carefully formatted photos of the area around them and different things like that. And they found that people responded consistently and automatically, regardless of whether or not they've read anything in their life or they live in, a science fiction future world. And I am kind of making fun of that. Tokyo is absolutely astounding. It can blow you away, but um, it doesn't matter. People respond to something called the golden section or the golden ratio. Have you guys heard of that phrase? There's a guy named, there's an Italian mathematician who went by the name of Fibonacci, because his actual birth name was something like uh, Ralph or Fernando or something like that, and he thought Fibonacci sounded a lot more cool. But the sequence he talks about is it's 1 1 2 3 5 8 13. It's the numerical sequence is that every subsequent number is the sum of the previous two numbers. So if it's 1 1 2 3 5 8 13, the next number is going to be 21 because that's 13 plus 8. The next one number is going to be 34 because that's 21 plus 13, and on up like that. And what's interesting about that, the Fibonacci sequence, is when you divide any two numbers next to each other, they come out to the golden ratio. But what Fibonacci discovered is that those numbers represent how tendrils in a root cluster will break up and separate out, or how branches in a tree will separate out, or how veins in a leaf will separate out, or how petals in a flower will spiral. Those numbers relate to those things all the time. And those numbers are a whole number approximation of this thing called the golden ratio. And so, regardless of where we come from, for some reason, that's something that every human being on the planet responds to. And I think that those two ideas, that idea that we all respond to this some sort of innate balance that we can encompass. And by the way, the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, your favorite movie will have that kind of ratio embedded in it. Your favorite music will have the chords and the tonal relationships embedded in it. Their harmonics are all based on this golden ratio. Uh, and that's true of almost everything we encounter. What's really fascinating is that even our DNA, if you look at our DNA, the double helix of DNA through a microscope, it is a golden ratio folded in on itself in a dodecahedron or a 10-sided diagram. And it's so, and I could give you a whole lecture about how that shows up and all these things. But the point is, it is it is something that is present everywhere. When we look for balance, and regardless of what we do, and we look for order, we look for these kinds of things that help us to feel confident and secure and satisfied. It comes down to different expressions of these ideas of what art actually is. And I really like this image. One of my favorite genres of art is retrofuturism. I love retrofuturism. I love Afrofuturism. I love these kinds of Australian futurism is one of my favorites. But these kinds of things where people imagine or extrapolate what the future could be like. Now, are any of you guys old enough to remember Star Trek, the original series? Okay, I remember watching that as a young person. I loved it. Uh, the reason why that's important is this guy right here invented our cell phone. And he invented the cell phone because when he was younger, he saw Captain Kirk with a communicator and he desperately needed that communicator. And as a kid, he
I
would
wish he didn't invent that.
sometimes, especially if we got teenage kids, sometimes that's nasty. But
Yeah, I
what
have three.
what is so funny is that we take these things for granted now. They're everywhere in our culture, but they're everywhere in our culture because he invented it as a result from watching a narrative device invented by Gene Roddenberry and realized by the set designers just as a way to shorten communication between Captain Kirk and the other people on the Enterprise. Same reason for the teleporter. But in one of the, I think it's towards the end of season two, they encounter a lone alien that is in a ship with something called an ionic drive, and they describe it a little bit in that. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but for the last 35, 40 years, the NASA has been experimenting with something that they're calling an ionic drive because it is an ultra low physical fuel burning engine that they can use for deep space probes to go out and actually explore the Oort cloud and the five moons of the non-planet Pluto. I'm also old enough to be very disappointed that Pluto is no longer a
It's a
planet.
planet to me.
It will always be a planet to me. I that just makes me so sad. So this comes to this. We talked a little bit about this last week. Is there a right way to think about art? I think that if there is a right way to think about art, the right way is to think about it with intent. Somebody took the time to make that thing that we're looking at. And if it's of any interest at all, hopefully we take the time to show them a little bit of respect for their efforts by looking at it a little bit closely, trying to articulate what we're seeing, trying to articulate how we think they made it, trying to articulate how we respond to it, and then trying to express why we think it's successful or not. Those are the four tools of artistic critique that we've talked about. And I think that is the right way to look at it seriously and to look at it with intent. And hopefully to look at it with respect. Beyond that, if you are able to articulate your opinion and you're able to tie it into what you're actually encountering when you see the art, then I think that is perfectly the right way to do it. And when we look at this, I put this in describe because in describe, I want you to look at the physical features that you're encountering, whether you're seeing, hearing, listen, or watching something. What are the physical attributes? I see that this is made up of several spirals. I see that there is there are white spirals and there are these dark brown spirals. I also see shiny metals spirals. There's one, maybe this is shiny wood. This appears to me to be something of a staircase. It looks like a spiral staircase that goes down several levels. This image, this photo kind of gives me vertigo a little bit. I see the shiny central pole right here, and I see the hands of maybe 3 or 4 people holding on the rail as they're walking up. Yeah, all that goes to describing it. I'm not trying to tell you what it is for, what it means, or anything like that. I'm just trying to say this is what it looks like. When we go to analyze, we try to talk about what was the artist doing when they made this? How did they make it? What are the materials that are used to make it? And if we look at this pretty closely, we can see that the materials appear to be something that can be bent a little bit and still retain its shape quite a bit, like perhaps willow sticks or reeds, but it appears to be something that the person purposely wove in an organic way, and it's big enough that people can walk through. So it had to be made where the artist was intentionally designing it to be strong enough to support its own weight, so it wouldn't collapse on the people walking through it. So analyzing on this, describing, we're just talking about what we see. Analyzing, we're talking about, we're using a little bit of our imagination to talk about how it was put together. What kind of materials is the person using? What kind of choices did they make as they were developing it? And for each of these, I also include some questions I want you to look at. And as you go through this, and maybe when you do your own critiques of work in the future, have this on your phone or something so you can refer to these questions until you get into the habit of using them or things that are similar. So in this, there's no imagination required. We're just talking about what the object is, not even what the object is necessarily, but what it looks like, how we encounter it with our senses. This, we're using a little bit of more imagination because we're thinking about how did the artist put it together. Then this, we're inviting even more of our imagination to take part because the artist, I don't know, sometimes it's nice to be able to talk to an artist who made work so you can find out what they were intending. But a lot of the times, I would rather try to figure out on my own what something might mean. And then once I have that kind of opinion started, then find out what the artist had to say about it. And if I disagree, then maybe find more context about where the artist is coming from mentally. What's their worldview? How does it differ from mine? And I like doing that because it starts developing into kind of an imaginary conversation with the artist. And that's always a lot more fun for me because then the art is less of an object, a thing that I come to, and more of something that is I'm experiencing some of that communication with. And I like that. It makes it feel like the art is more of an active presence because the art then for me demonstrates the activity of the person behind it. I don't know. Does that make sense to anybody? Kind of, sort of? Okay, good. And then at the very end, again, there's questions here to ask about it. And then at the very end, we evaluate. Is it valuable? Is it worthwhile? Is it a success? And sometimes art like this is really can be beautiful, even though it's dealing with a really sad occasion, a mother holding her dead son. And sometimes art can be really difficult to look at because it's not pretty. It's not comfortable. It doesn't make you happy. But that doesn't mean it's unsuccessful and it doesn't mean that it's worthless. Sometimes art is designed to be purposely constructed to get you to challenge your own worldview and to challenge what the easy decisions or easy reactions might be. Something to think about. Uh, University, if you guys have a chance to get onto campus, the main gallery over at the Sears building, or the Sears gallery, I'm sorry, in the Art and Communications building, has a copy of this. It's called the Pieta, And this is Michelangelo's kind of bookend to Mary's life, where the initial one is Mary holding a baby. Everybody's seen that, the Madonna and Child depiction that is so very common in a lot of Christian paintings. And this is the moment after Jesus was taken off the cross, and Mary is sitting there holding her dead son, the dead Jesus. And it's the original is carved out of marble. And what is so amazing is that every element of every texture is accounted for, and it's all polished. It looks, it's almost supernatural the way it's put together. Just amazing. And in the setting itself, it's fascinating to me because he used about a dozen different types of stone that are also polished to kind of frame this vignette. It's very interesting. Now, if we ask, well, if we evaluate, is this successful? Well, it's successful because it communicates a very powerful emotion. It's successful because it's, 500 years old and it stood the test of time. So it was obviously really well built. It's successful because a lot of people are emotionally attached to it and feel they really connect with a part of a story that is very prominent in many people's lives. And I think it's for my mom, this was successful because it really helped her to connect with this larger than life literary figure of Mary. Because and it was for my mom, it was a heartbreaking sculpture to look at. It was very difficult for her to see. Now, sometimes art that we don't like can still be successful because it's been around for a long time. Art that we don't like can still be successful because it powerfully pushes or has powerfully pushed an entire culture, or it shares what a culture is. We don't have to like something for it to be successful. And as we look at these different things, I want you to keep these four tools in the back of your head as you look at stuff. And what is going to be really interesting is you will find, and there's that video again that we watched last week, you will find that there are some things that you don't like, and that's fine. There are some things that you do like, but there are going to be things that you don't like that now you respect because you realize that the person really did do it on purpose. This is one of my favorite stories. A guy named Frank who came to North Africa to talk to a guy named Malik, and in their conversation, they became friends for the rest of their lives. It was a Christian who was horrified with the start of the Fifth Crusade. He talked to the Muslim leader of Egypt to try to get him to stop. And because of the conversation, he ended the Fifth Crusade. This man did. And he ended it by uh, leading the Crusaders onto the banks of the Nile during the time when the Nile, right before the Nile flooded. When the Nile flooded, all their horses were mired down. The soldiers started getting diarrhea, and he rushed out with his doctors and his soldiers to give food to the Christians and to give them medical treatment. And it completely broke the resolution of the Christians to hurt the Egyptians, whose only crime essentially was being Muslim rather than Christian. So, and when they returned to Europe, because of this meeting, when the Christians returned to Europe, they said that they had never seen true Christianity and true Christ-like behavior shown as in the treatment that Malik gave them as he treated their wounds and fed them and sent them on their way. So anyway, and this is a painting that is successful because it demonstrates that. Now, we could also talk about how weird the geometry is and different things like that. The colors have kind of bleached out. We can talk about that, but this has become a really important painting because it is, and there is beauty within it. It demonstrates the priorities of the artist at the time, and it demonstrates how people were expecting historical things to be shown. So I just really like this painting. Anyway, now I only have about a half an hour left, and in that I want to talk about the flow state really quick, and then I'm going to. Oh, it looks like there's another broken link, and then after we talk about the flow state, I'm going to talk about the assignment. And if you guys have already done it, That's great. If you haven't, or if you did it and the grade wasn't as good as you hoped for, if you want to redo it after you doing this, great. Rework it and send it in. And if not, just let me know, hey, this is the best that I can do. And just let me know that. All right. So leading up to the flow state, this the reason why this guy is important. His name is Mahali, and I'm going to try his name, Mahali. I don't know if I said that right, but he's Hungarian, and so Hungarians have never met a consonant they don't want to use in a word. My family comes from this part of the world, and one of the things that he talks about is something that is also talked about in the movie I Am, that was done by Tom Shadyac. Has any of you seen or heard that movie? I believe it's still on Netflix, but it is Tom Shadyac is the guy that directed um, the most profitable comedic movies of all time. Ace Ventura, uh, Pet Detective, I think was the most profitable. But Tom Shadyac, um, he did this video, a documentary about exactly what Mahali is talking about in this. Where what are some of the things that contribute to happiness? Having enough, being warm, being well fed, being surrounded by people that care for you, that you can care about. And if that is true, then it kind of makes sense that perhaps the more of those things that you have, the happier you would be. But Tom Shadyac discovered that the more people that told him how wonderful he was didn't make him happier. Having seven homes, didn't make him happier. Uh, having a lot more money that he could spend in 17 lifetimes didn't make him happier. Having enough and being able to share it did. And so it's just really interesting how uh, happiness is not doesn't seem to be there doesn't seem to be a direct relationship to the idea that if having a little bit is really good, having more doesn't always necessarily mean that it's better. And what's fascinating to me is that the people that do have an awful lot that are able to live in a state of happiness are people that leverage that lotness or whatever to impact more people around them. It's not just something that they consume entirely by themselves. I just think that that's fascinating. Anyway, and the flow state is related to this because sometimes not having things is what makes us happy, but by doing things is what makes us happy. And all of us have things that we do that help us at the very least feel less miserable. And what this guy has found out as well as when people are doing things that they kind of are able to enjoy enough that they lose themselves into it, then that becomes something that they do better as well. And he started referring to this as the flow state. Now, all of you guys have encountered this. Everybody has. Um, where you come to your senses and you realize that an hour and a half has gone by and you didn't even realize the passage of time. It doesn't matter what the activity is that you were doing when it happened. All of you have encountered this. I have really irritating relatives that love running, and they get into the flow state while they're running all the time. And I tell them that I believe that when each individual was born, they were assigned a certain number of heartbeats, and I really don't want to push that too fast, too many number of heartbeats too quickly, because I'd like to last as long as possible. I don't really believe that, but I try to make them feel bad for shaming me as that I'm not a jogger. Anyway, all of us have done things where we achieve the flow state. We talk about Tom Shadyak's movie here, and this actualized this this I found a link where you can actually watch that movie as well. It's about an hour long, and it's very good. But the flow state is something that you can actually put yourself into as well. When you start focusing on something and you remember when you were in that flow state with other activities and try to draw that kind of feeling back to you, you can bring the flow state to you as well. And then there's this the quiz here. I'll show you what this looks like. Some people have already taken it, and this one, it's kind of annoying to me. I'm trying to show you what it looks like, but it it doesn't have all the questions on the same page like I was hoping. But all the quizzes are open book, and I want you guys to you can take the quizzes as many times as you want. When you do take the quizzes, if you need to take it again or you want to take it again, it doesn't let you. Email me as soon as you can so I can take care of that for you. So I'm going to walk through the assignments really quick for this. And again, I appreciate everybody here. It makes it a lot easier on me, knowing that there's human beings that are breathing, that are watching me. Okay, first is written reflection. And you'll notice that as we go through the semester, the reflections get longer and longer. Um, by longer and longer, I mean the first one is like 50 words, the last one is like I ask you to write a couple paragraphs, but that's in a couple months. I want you to go to this. For this one, it's a little bit different. There, where I'm asking for three different paragraphs. A paragraph is 2 to 5 sentences. I don't want you to write any more than 5 sentences for each of these three paragraphs. And if you can express what you need to in 3 sentences for each one, that's fine. But stay away from using AI. Use your own perspective on this, because I'm asking for your input. I'm not asking for AI's input. One thing that I have done is use AI to ask it, please share with me um, the questions I need to ask myself when I look at this art, and it will do that and help me to write it as well. Now, the link takes you to the Met Museum site, and I want you to scroll through. Each time you go to this, the images are going to be different, and either write down the name, the title of it, or include a screenshot of the image of the piece. And you can go to a couple different pages until you find one that gets your fancy. And as soon as you do, then I want you to look at those three paragraphs and think about this. So this is looks like it's a vessel with a very narrow base. Looks like it has handles on the side, a very long, wide neck. It's it is about 3,200 years old. It's a light colored clay with red, blue, and black. Okay. So that's a couple things that I'm looking at. And then if we go back to this, the three different question is, why did it catch your eye? Well, for me, I really like that antique pottery. So this is I'm just responding to something that I like. And I like the fact that it's so old and they used blue in it before the word was even a part of people's written language. I think that's interesting to me too. So, and I love the designs on it. The designs are relatively simple, but they're geometric and they look like they're very carefully applied. What do you think inspired the artist who made it? I think that in this case, that vessel is something that it's utilitarian. It means people are going to use it. But instead of just making a boring thing, the artist wanted to do something that would also brighten somebody's kitchen. Maybe it's in their kitchen or the living room. And he did something that, or she did something that they thought would do that. And I imagine when this was brand new, it was probably very bright and very colorful. And then the third one is, what ways did the artist either enter into a flow state while making this artwork, and what were the challenges and skills required? Well, the skills are pretty easy. I mean, the person had to know how to work with ceramic and clay. They had to know how to work with the paints so the paints could withstand the firing. And then talking about, going into a flow state, I don't know. I've made coil pots and things like that before, but working with clay is almost magical. It brings you back to your childhood where you're just entranced with how you have power over your fingers, which has power over something else. And you can actually make something in the shapes that you want. And I love that. And I can imagine the person just kind of losing themselves in the process. So all that's basically what the reflection is. And I just want you to think about these things, but remember, it's really important that you either attach an image of it and embed that into whatever you write, or you have the title. Don't just say artwork. Put the title in so somebody else can find it later if they want to.
I did notice sometimes you're going to have to resize the image just to fit it so you could actually write the paragraphs with the pictures.
Oh, that's really good. If you're working in Word, if you do embed and embed it in there, tap on it, get the corner, and you can shrink it down pretty small. If you're working
I
with
just
Word.
use the program to where I'm able to do it on the app itself.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. So you've got to resize it so you can. That's good to know. Excellent. I have not used that before, so thank you. Now for this assignment, we're drawing 3 different simple designs, and the way to do this is actually based on how the ancient Egyptians created their tomb paintings. And there's actually physical evidence demonstrating how they did this. They would paint something on papyrus, or they would paint something on clay. Then they would draw a grid over it, and they would draw the same number of squares of that grid onto the wall that they were painting on. And when they would transfer, so if, for example, I'm doing this and I divide it into force vertically and then force horizontally, this means there's 16 different squares. And if I very lightly draw those 16 squares onto another piece of paper, I can transfer this image fairly easily by just transferring over what I see in each of the individual squares. Do you guys kind of get that? I'm not drawing it on this. Let's see. I do have this short video is a good one to demonstrate on. This shows how to transfer a drawing using a grid. And I would really recommend doing that for this if it's kind of frustrating for you at all. And on this, it kind of makes sense to do something like that where you draw, okay, we can make a long rectangle that is this long and maybe and that high. And then we can use our pencil or pen to very lightly mark where the peaks of each of these are. And then we can, with confidence, draw these and get it pretty close. And do the same kind of thing with this, where we there where we have a very long, low rectangle, and we mark where these 5 peaks are, and then we just go all the way up with the 3, and then go a third of the way up with these. And I just want you to kind of play with that a little bit. And this is where, if you want to do the grids, it will really help. And when you it might be worthwhile printing this page out so you have access to it, and then just very carefully draw on this image the grid lines, and then transfer them onto your paper that you're using to submit the drawing with. This is 7.5 minutes long, so when you watch it, I watch it at double speed, but this gives a really good demonstration of what I'm talking about. Now, again, like I said, this is something that was invented before the pyramids were built, and people in almost every culture has used this kind of grid technique for translating or transferring images. And this right here, this is a tough one because we can tell it's a horse. But I think if you draw the grid lines on this, print this image out, draw the grid lines on it, and keep it upside down, and then draw the upside down image over somewhere else. If you pay attention to, not that this is a mane, but that this shape kind of looks like a potato, and then you have little leaves coming off over here. Everybody can draw a potato, everybody can draw leaves. Don't look at this as a leg, but look at this as some sort of noodle with a bulb at the end, and just transfer. Think about how close this shape is to the edge. Think how close the end of this line is to the edge. Think how close the bottom of this bump is to the edge. The bottom of these bumps are to the edge. Think about it in relations like that, and I guarantee the image is going to look a lot better. And when you turn it right side up, when you're all done, it'll become a horse. Do not print this out, turn it right side up, and then draw the horse. Don't do that. Don't print this out and trace it. If you sketch a grid over it, even if you're imagining the grid, and then transfer that grid very lightly to another piece of paper and do each grid square. Like this grid square is going to be really easy because it's going to be completely blank. So is this one. If you're doing that and just concentrating on each of those grid areas, this is going to come out very successful. Now, the lower grade I gave to a couple people that turned this in was because they did a pretty good job on the body. When it came to this area, they thought mane and tail. They did not keep with the same kind of uh, consistency at avoiding the hoarseness of the horse as they did with the body. Now, if you disagree with the grade that I gave you, just email me and let me know that you did your best. But I want you to at least try and see if you can do any better with the mane or the tail, the mane, sorry, right here, or the tail than you did the first time after we talk about grids. Just try it, see if you can do better. If you can't, email me. But and again, I share the grid transfer video right there. So those are the three assignments: the reflection, where you go to the Met Museum website, and the three simple designs, and then drawing that image upside down. And when you draw again, when you draw this image upside down, look at the different areas, divide it up into thirds, and do different shapes. Do rough approximations of each of these forms. Do everything you can not to see this as an upside down horse. Which I know is
Now,
difficult.
Andrew, are you saying those are the dates that you pushed back this Sunday that they're due?
Yes, down here, I'm sorry, I forgot that I turned off the sharing.
You're fine. So the only reason why I asked is because, like, I have completed those already, but I'm already looking at the quiz for creativity, the written reflection for creativity, and the divergent thinking, and that's all saying it's due this Sunday. Is that date going to get pushed as well, or is that
Yeah,
still due?
it is definitely gonna get pushed. Let me change that right now.
Okay. Okay. So I was wondering how much I still have to get done before the Sunday, and that's
Yeah,
what I'm looking at right
I'm
now.
glad you pointed that out because I'm seeing the computer really screwed that up.
And
Because
I'm under assignments is where I'm seeing the dates that aren't the same.
and I'm under the assignments you're not going to be able to do until you open up everything in the individual module.
Which
But
I have.
okay,
So they show up for me, but the dates still say like they're all due on the 31st. Even the ones the written reflections, the ones that I've already turned in that aren't graded, those dates are corrected. You change those to the 31st, but all the other stuff is still saying 31st.
okay. Um, I am changing that right now.
Okay.
Let's see. Because I don't want anybody to do this until we talk about it next week. And
Right. That's what I was actually waiting for you to talk about. So
okay, so I'm uh give me just a second and then I want you to refresh your page.
okay.
I'm glad I want everybody to watch this recording because I am going to go back and I'm not going to get everything done tonight, but
Okay.
I am trying to get at least the first three or four redated so that you don't, to demonstrate that we, oh, wait a sec. Yeah, okay, is that right? Okay, because it should be everything.
Your modules are right. It's just in the assignments where they're not right. The modules are have the correct dates, just not the assignments.
Okay, that is really aggravating. Yeah, and I'm glad you're pointing that out because when I changed the modules, the date should have automatically changed.
Okay.
Okay, so we should be on module 3 next week. Okay, would you please refresh your feed and see if that is updated now?
Okay.
Okay, so module 2, the dates are all correct.
Yeah, it fixed it.
Okay, and then the
Yeah,
module
it was
3,
confusing me for a sec. So now, yeah, it has all those for the June 5th now.
okay, because what you should be seeing is module 3 quiz is due next Friday. and the 3 assignments are due that Sunday. And then this one, I need to change this as well because it's overlapping also. Um, and I'm showing module 4. So, excuse me, I will try to stay ahead of that. But like
Okay.
you said, module 2 should be due this Sunday. Module 3, everything should be done next Sunday.
Copy that.
So,
That's good. That
and
means I'm done for the week.
yeah, yeah, you can go take a nap or something. Now, I want to remind people if you start doing something and I haven't graded it and you don't think it's, and after watching this video you realize, oh, I've got to go back and fix it, do that, fix it, go back and fix it, and resubmit it. And if I don't give you the grade that you want, look at what I've said and do what you can to fix it, or email me. I have had people where they sent in really crappy, horrible pictures, and I graded them off of what I saw in the image, and it did not reflect the work that they did. So they ended up resubmitting with different images of their work. I am more than happy to give you a better grade after I see the new images. So, all right. Now, Susan and Nicole, do you guys have any questions about the stuff that we looked at or talked about?
Nope, we are good.
All right.
No,
Excellent.
I'm trying to keep on top of it. So
Okay. Does it help knowing what the due dates are supposed to actually be?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
that helps a lot.
Okay. And I am sorry for the panic that ensued. I thought I had fixed all that. So please, nobody give yourself an aneurysm because I screwed up the computer. I'm gonna blame it on the computer. It's not me. It has nothing to do
Okay,
with me. It's all the electronical system.
I just won't stress about drawing an upside down horse until I start trying to do it.
Well, and I think if watch that video about the grid, it will definitely help, and it will help a lot. And when you do that upside down drawing, I've had people that get so frustrated with the horse itself. If you divide it vertically by thirds, and then take a piece of paper and cover the bottom, bottom 2/3, just draw that third strip, and then use two pieces of paper to cover the top and bottom, and just draw the middle, and then use a piece of paper to cover the top and just draw the bottom. That helps a lot because you'll find that if you get it away from constant self comparison with what a horse is supposed to look like, you will always do a tremendously better job. And I think a big part of that is you guys are interested in art. That means that somewhere in you there is a damaged part of yourself that insists on perfection, and you are constantly flogging yourself for not meeting that. And that is just the curse of a brilliant mind. If you have that in you, it just means that you're smart. And I think all of you
Actually,
have it in you.
I
So we
actually
just have to
prefer really
constantly work
abstract
against them.
stuff. So
What's that?
I like really abstract stuff. So I don't necessarily have to draw things. Well, just put something on paper.
Do the best you can.
Just
And
kidding.
when
Yeah,
you
I
turn it
know.
right side up, if it doesn't look the way you want it to, I, I'm thinking, look and see, did you draw the shapes like the potato and the leaves, or did you draw thinking that this should look like a mane? And that's the question I want people to ask themselves. And if you did the best you can, then just let me know. All right. Well, thank you very much, folks. I hope everybody had a wonderful Memorial Day yesterday. The story that I emailed everybody, my my grandpa was procurations for the Manhattan Project. And Southeast Washington was where the Manhattan Project stationed a lot of military personnel to do the heavy metals refining to make the enriched uranium and plutonium for the nuclear weapons in World War II, or at the time, the atomic bombs. Japanese had gotten wind of that. The Japanese were sending high altitude fire bombs into the Northwest. And so from about 1940, the end of 1943, 1944 to the end of the war, there were hundreds of these Japanese fire bombs that were way up in the atmosphere that were designed to drop where the Hanford Reservation was, the Manhattan Project was. And the 555th because they were Black Americans, uh, the people under Eisenhower did not want them using rifles in Europe. And so even though, the invasion of Normandy and all those kinds of things, um, even though Eisenhower knew these guys were fully trained, the generals under him did not want him to put them into the European theater. So instead, they were sent to Washington State, and I'm very grateful for them because every day they were fighting fires in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. They saved not only a lot of physical property, but they saved thousands of lives during the end of World War II. And my grandpa was something of a racist when he moved from Utah to Washington State to be in the Manhattan Project. And my mom remembers his encounter with these incredible heroes that were risking their lives to protect uh, ordinary folks from fires that the government wasn't even telling people why so many fires were going on because it was all top secret. And they completely changed my grandpa's worldview, totally transformed him because of just the gentlemanly, good-natured goodness of all the men in the 555th. So that's what I think of when I think of Memorial Day. So, and there is something really special about first responders and military personnel who are willing to stand between danger and families of people that they'll never ever meet. So thank you very much for everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
Andrew,
you,
if you
Jim.
want to look up the 131st and the 509th Bomb Wing, that's what I did for my 20 years. You'll get some information on that, and it's all nuke stuff. That was my career, so get you some good knowledge if you want to look them up. It's the 509th Bomb Wing out of Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri.
Oh, okay. I will write that down somewhere. I, Jeremy, could you email that to me?
Sure, we'll do.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah, I lived in Alabama, and so the Tuskegee Airmen were like the superheroes from in the area because I lived in Tuskegee, and but they are still like the Captain America type. The 555th and the Tuskegee Airmen in my family were what Captain America should be. Anyway, but it all started. Memorial Day started after the end of the Civil War. The survivors left in Charleston were predominantly Black Americans, and they went to the abandoned prison and they unburied the mass graves of the prisoners, and they tried to rebury them with the honors that they felt that they were due. And that's how Memorial Day started. And it was celebrated in spring because that's when flowers are the healthiest. And I thought that's pretty cool. Anyway, and I'll have to tell you about meeting retired infantryman in Tehran and my exchange with him sometime. But thank you very much, guys. I hope you have a wonderful week and weekend, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday. And I'm so grateful you joined me tonight. Thank you very much.
And Andrew,
Thank
one
you.
other thing. There's conflicting dates on your module still.
How far in the future?
So well, just the prior stuff. So your module 1 and module 2, you got dates that are like due for 31st on module 2, and then dates that are due on the 22nd and the 24th on module 1. So I don't know if it matters since we're already kind of past it, but when it updated,
Okay.
it put like later dates on some of the module 1s and then earlier dates on module 2.
Okay, what I'm saying in module 1 is right because everything is due on the 24th.
Okay.
And in module 2, the quiz is due on Friday. Oh, no, it's not. It's not due on Friday. Okay, I see what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay. You're right. I'll go rather than fixing it, do you think I need to fix it or just tell everybody in the video?
I
Do the
don't
best
think
you
you
can,
need
don't
to
worry
since
about
we're
it.
kind of past that now. But it was just something I saw after you did the update that it swapped some dates, did some weird stuff.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. What I will
Yep.
do is go through the future modules, ones in the past. If I feel like I want to do it, I'll fiddle with it. Other than that, as we move forward, we'll just move forward and try to make sure that things are straightforward as we move forward. Is that
Copy
good?
that. Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Thank you very much, guys, and I will see you next week.